The new album's called Drunk. There's a lot of different ways to interpret that title. I'm wondering what ways you were thinking about the word drunk for this new project.
Oh man, good question. I think that it speaks a lot more to so many other things other than the actual literal term. You know,
What do you mean?
like life and how everything feels right now. Kind of a mixture of that with like just kind of like how lackadaisical and how like weird everything is. You know, it feels like that socially. You know,
It feels like you're drunk walking around and that nothing really makes any sense.
Nothing makes any sense. You know, it doesn't. Like within 5 seconds of talking to somebody, you can just realize it. Like what is going on right now? You know, it's just like it's weird.
So the album title is in many ways a reflection of how you're seeing society right now.
Yeah. Almost like we're like even in the metaphorically where like you would be like okay blacked out. Like a lot of the time social media is like this blank spot in a sentence in your life. You know, like every time you connect to the computer, you just blank out for a second. You're not a person for about a good. When you really get into it, you just disappear for a second.
Well, I never thought about that. You're right. Like when those times when you're in the cab and you're in the back of the
you're
cab
not there.
and you're not. You might as well not be there.
Even though you're like in a whole nother world, which is the whole world entirely, you're just not in that moment.
Do you ever travel and do you look at your phone a lot?
Oh my God, I don't even talk to people, man.
I look at my phone a lot and I travel and I think I'll never see that street ever again as long as I live. I'll never see like that steel mill ever again. But I'm not looking at it.
No, it's just part of how it works now. It's like you're more concerned about what Future's going through.
Yeah. so is this you acknowledging it and trying to change it, or is it acknowledging it to let us know about it?
I mean, I don't feel like there's a lot of different things that you can take from it, but at the same time, I feel like it's not something that I'm trying to. I feel like people would have to want to change it themselves. Like something has to change, regardless. It's like regardless of if you can acknowledge it or not. It's like you're gonna grow up, you're gonna get old, and you're gonna die. So inside of that, there's things that you can try to move around, or try to change and stuff like that. So it's like I don't put so much responsibility on it like that. But it's one of those things where it's more of like observation, and reporting.
Can you listen to some music? Is that cool?
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's listen to some music. I'm glad. That's fine. This is a song featuring Kendrick Lamar. This is Walk On By. This is Thundercat.
I'd imagine I'd get really angry as the songs are going by. So just
turn it off.
Yeah, it's like come back and I'm like,
hit it.
At the end of it all, no one wants to drink alone. Baby, that's how it goes.
From eyewitness binoculars to Argentina and Africa, we mastered the pressure. Hazardous, harassing us. You laugh at us. More accurate at bagging dimes, now we bagging rhymes. Body bags, price tags on your forehead. 9 times out of 10, young 9 or 10 when that line becomes thin. Be a killer or fireman. Fill up the liveness pen if I needed to right my wrongs. I can't deny sin. Condolences through these palms. I remember when your cousin was coming home, but we plotted to kill him cause we ain't know him. Unfamiliar faces make niggas nervous. Convicted court cases might hit the surface. Restricted territories might come through lurking. We ain't want none of that urgent call. Llama had turban for all of my identity. Percocets for all the headaches I'm about to bring. Confetti, tumble out this barrel soon as it ring. You ready? That was the word before we moved on them. Treat them like Joe the plumber. I wonder if someone coming can see this tool on them. Immature what you call me. Your cousin wasn't coming home from the pen, but from the army. If I could right my wrongs, it'd be in this verse I read. Even though a bullet hit him in the leg, still walk on by.
That's a bit of Kendrick Lamar. It's featured on a song called Walk On By off the new record from my guest in studio right now, Thundercat. You work really closely with Kendrick on the To Pimp a Butterfly record, which is one of the most successful, most widely acclaimed, and one of the most beautiful records anyone's heard in a really long time.
hey, man, thank you.
What can you tell me about working with him?
The guy is amazing.
Yeah?
To say the least. And I don't know, it's like I would try to talk to him as much as possible, throughout and after, and we still talk every day for the most part, and we kind of trip out off of life because it's like it changed things when that album happened. We didn't realize it was going to do anything of that sort, but it was like we could see we could kind of look and try to like go, this is going to be a interesting, whatever is to come from it. And from there it was like I don't know, it just I don't know, it just still resonates, as something that we all wanted for it, but we didn't know how it was going to translate, and working with him throughout the process for me was like it was like being kneaded like a piece of dough. It felt like somebody was like bending and stretching and like,
Yeah.
pulling different things out. And, it's like I've never experienced anything like that in a working situation ever.
It's funny you mentioned that idea of being kneaded, with a K, kneaded like a piece of dough, because I know that going into making this record, you were uncertain whether he was going to be able to accept your ideas, or you found it difficult that he would. You found it difficult the idea that he would accept your ideas. What do you mean by that?
Well, a lot of the time with rappers, they exist in their own space, and so because of that, they don't. Not only do they not allow people there, I would imagine that even the act of rapping sometimes is like you have to talk about yourself so much that you think it's just yourself. So a lot of the time, that's been my experience with different people that I've worked with, and being that I'm a musician first, and it's like the thing that I have is a piece that works, that has to fit in a puzzle. So I know it's never just me, regardless, But it's one of those things where I've experienced in the past moments where people would just be kind of like, to themselves, and it's like once they've gotten something from you, they don't talk to you anymore,
Right.
all kinds of stuff like that. So I guess it was my experience that would make me assume or lead me to believe that that there was, once that happened, that was it. But the truth is, Kendrick would always let me know otherwise, and I would never. I don't usually feel comfortable asking people to do stuff for me like that, But as I would play, I would send him music all the time, regardless if I was working on an album or not. I still do it. It's like if I've done something new, immediately I send it to him.
I think a lot of performers of your caliber will only look to people they can improvise with. You look at people who can play bass the way you can. They'll want to play with other keyboard players at that level. They'll want to play with saxophone players at that level, with drummers at that level. It seems from looking at your career and looking at who you work with, people like Kendrick.
Yeah.
It seems like you're looking for something a little bit deeper. What do you look for in a collaborator rather than just technical skill?
I just look for the genuine love and appreciation of what it is that they're doing. A lot of the time, not the hype or the celebrity of, or the I'm into the ideas. I'm into like the new uncharted territory. I'm into like, what can this be? Especially if both of us are there. And it's not one-sided, where somebody's looking at me and just waiting for me to do everything, or those different types of things happen sometimes. But specifically with Kendrick, I saw something completely different. A guy that would want to. It was like it would become interweaved in like the thread of what was going on throughout the course of the day, and he's been the same person since I've met him, and it's like again, that's why I feel like the more and more I see the accolades this guy gets and stuff like that, it's totally like merited, because he's really that guy.
And it sounds to me what you're saying is it's something greater than just music. It's something.
Yeah, he sees it. He sees it, man.
We had Raoul Peck, who'd made the new documentary, I'm Not Your Negro, about James Baldwin the other day, and he ends the documentary with The Blacker the Berry. And I asked him why he played a Kendrick Lamar song at the end of it, and he said, because I honestly feel like the torch is being passed from someone like James Baldwin, not a musician, James Baldwin, a great thinker, a great writer, a great activist, to Kendrick Lamar. And you see that too?
I absolutely see it, because it's like it bears so much weight, but it's light as a feather. It's like in one sentence, it's like it's a political statement. In the next sentence, it's like the black experience. The next experience is everybody's experiences. It's like it's all meshed together, and it's like it's an undescribable feeling when you really think about it. When you hear it, you feel like it's you. You feel like it's him. You can feel that it's people music. You can feel that it's like it's big. So it's like I think that's what's happening with people when they hear that album. Even even when the funny thing is like watching the music videos for it, when like as compared to the recording of it, where it was like I could totally see like the moments, like the laughing to keep from crying, the comedy and the horror and like the anger and like the love. I could see all the like really brilliant color. I could see him in brilliant colors almost. It was like, whoa. It's like this guy is out here on fire. And I think that's what people have been experiencing when they've seen Kendrick for the last, so odd years. And it's like, that's what makes him who he is, though.
And I know that laughing instead of crying has been something that's been really important to you throughout this.
Oh man, well yeah, there's so many denotations and stuff. It's like just being black, period, is always a funny thing.
What do you mean?
Well, I always have this thing where I would be like, it's like I run it through the test of could it be because I'm black?
Yeah, right.
It's like you just judge everything based on that, and it makes everything funny. It's like,
And then there's that one time that someone doesn't laugh.
yeah, and then it is because I'm black, and you're like, oh crap, exactly, dude. It becomes like, but
That's a good litmus test. Yeah, I understand. I want to talk a little bit more about your music, and also the idea of laughing through crying is throughout this music in a really interesting way. This is a song called Jamil's Space Ride, and because it's short enough that we can play the entire song.
Yeah.
Can you set it up for us?
Well, it's that one time I woke up and I was just really I didn't know what to think.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of the time with songwriting, I don't have a way it comes about in a consistent manner. It's very different every time. And it's like, I remember, it's like a lot of the time I'll be listening to music that I've been mowing over for a while or stuff like that. I'll be hearing melodies, but I'll never put the two and two together. It doesn't always happen immediately. And so I just remember I woke up one day and I think I may have had a conversation with Jamil and just realized how volatile he really was. Mm-hmm. like when you look at a person, you're like, oh crap, you really are a monster, Mm-hmm. And so I just had that realization about my little brother.
Let's take a listen.
I want to go right. I'm safe on my block, except for the cops. Will they attack? Could it be 'cause I'm black? I want to ride away off into space and into the sun with all the spirits in space, dust and aliens, where we belong. Although it seems like it's all crashing down, I just wanna ride my bike through all the with the wind in my face. Miss me with that nonsense. I'm free as a bird and light as the wind. Just leave me alone. Just let me ride off into space. Space ride. That's where I wanna be. Space ride.
Let's call that the radio edit of Jamil's Space Ride. New music from Thundercat, my guest right now. It's from his new album, Drunk. It does relate to what we were just talking about, the idea of laughing through crying, your kind of litmus test that you put people through of, is it because I'm black? And you see whether you get that laugh or whether you get that stern look and how that informs you. But there is... It's a serious song. There are things you talk about in that song that aren't incredibly funny, that are real life.
Yeah.
Yet the way you sing it and the way we're laughing about it and the music behind it, it's actually whimsical and kind of poignant at the same time.
I appreciate that.
Tell me about how you come up with that, how you fuse those two things together.
Just being black. It's just, I mean, as silly as that sounds, it's like a lot of the time, it's like you wake up and every day you're still like, there's still remnants of like people that don't believe you're a full human being, and that being like a reality where you like, I remember the day I realized, like, even like in the Constitution where there was like citizens with a capital C and citizen with a lowercase c. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, who are they talking to with the lowercase c? And it was like, oh, it's because I'm black. It's like, oh. But it's like one of those things at the same time that, it's like, I don't know. It's not there to scare you, I don't think. It's not there to discourage you. It's there for you to be resilient. And, like, it's not something to where you can let it linger and hang over your head in such a dark manner. Because if you do, you'll just, you'll wither up and die, and you'll be an angry, bitter person.
When I listened to that song, I listened to the record for the first time, full disclosure, last night. Mm-hmm. And I think we were trying to figure out how to make heads or tails of it, and I put it on, and immediately I thought Frank Zappa.
Hey.
Like, I got it. I thought that right away, especially track one. I heard... But also, I want to talk a little bit about Frank Zappa. But first, am I right? Is he a big influence on you?
Oh, man, you hit it right on the head, dude. He's like a genuine solar flare, man. That guy is a beast monster.
What do you get from him?
everything, man. Zappa was the one, dude. Of course, there's more ones, but there's like Zappa in his like every last part of what he did was amazing. And some people love to categorize things they love. They can't wait to put it in a category. Oh, it's a jam band. I'm like, you call that stuff like jam music? And it's like, no, that's written out. That's like beyond classical. That's like, it's transcended jazz. It's like, it's gone into another place where it's like, it's dancing around in this weird cosmic thing, and anything from the part where he has like Benny Colaiuta and George Duke in his band, and it's like from that to like everything to where his son still plays his music. It's like, it's so important, like the stuff that he did. One of my favorite albums, of course, or favorite two albums are Apostrophe and Overnight Sensation. It's one of those things where it's like, I remember the day I heard Uncle Remus, and this was the one. I remember the moment where I discovered that Zappa did a version of George Duke's song, and it was like, it was crazy hearing, and I would play both of them back to back. And I was like, this is insane to realize like how this one painful moment translates like this into Frank Zappa's music. And they're both beautiful as hell. But the context in which Frank Zappa would be talking about it, you wouldn't understand. It almost seemed it wasn't out of context, but it was just like, what is he talking about? But then hearing George Duke sing it, it was like, oh, it was deep for me, moments like that. So it's like anything from that to like, of course, St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast or a Dynamo Hum. Or
Well, what I was thinking about, especially as it relates to that last record, is Brown Shoes Don't Make It, Mothers of Invention.
Yeah, man.
This, if you don't know, Frank Zappa's early work was contained in a band that wasn't necessarily a band, but it was kind of a Nine Inch Nails-y style band, where it was really, a band, but it was Frank Zappa.
No, that I would call them a jam band.
A jam, maybe so, yeah.
Just for the sake of art, if that was going to be the one thing, because it was like, it was very jammy,
What we forget about Frank Zappa when we talk about him now is that, not unlike yourself, and I mean this in the kindest possible way, there is social commentary, there is justice, there's sadness contained in what seems like absurd, highly technically proficient, and funny songs.
Thank you.
So you look at a song like Brown Shoes Don't Make It, which is a song about Lyndon Johnson going to Vietnam and not telling the press, and the press realizing that he's doing it because he's wearing brown shoes with a black suit, something he would never do because he was so well dressed. He writes this kind of very funny song, this kind of absurd song. I think it's off Joe's Garage.
Yeah.
And it's absurd, but it really delivers a point.
Which is another fantastic album, man. Joe's Garage.
But how much did that idea of delivering a point, a very serious point, and Vietnam was a very serious point, and the treatment of African Americans by the police, by society, and by the Constitution is a very serious point. What do you learn from Frank Zappa on how to treat those issues through music?
Well, I think across the board, music is like a means of therapy. It's also a means of like relief, So you find sanctuary in music a bit sometimes. You really can, And it's like I was saying earlier, where it's like light as a feather, but then it's heavy as like a stone. It's like it's one of those things where I don't know. I think you come to that. At some point, you come to that conclusion. It doesn't matter what walk of music or whatever it is, you come to that conclusion of what is this, and what can it be, and it's just about sometimes maybe you hit it earlier or you don't, And for me, I've always been a person that was like one to dig for records and one to look for things and try to understand what it was about. I would try to walk in another person's shoes a lot of the time. So when I would listen to music, I wouldn't be listening to music just because it sounded cool or like it would be like, oh, cool. It's like on another level because they're playing fast and crazy. It's like I'd be listening to it for what makes it fast and crazy. Like I'd be like, what's going on in this guy's mind that's making him tick like this? And with Zappa, he would tell you right out. He would just say it. It it didn't have to make total sense in the moment where you're like, oh, that's crazy. He's talking about this. Then he mentions his balls, and then he's talking back again about the. It's like it's all what really goes on in your mind. What's really going on in your mind, which is what people don't always want to know. It's like like the thing with the truth. It's like, yeah, people will say they want to know the truth, but then when you tell them the truth, it actually pisses them off. And it's like, well, am I supposed to get shaken by the fact that you got pissed off, or am I supposed to feel awkward about telling you the truth? It's like, I don't know at what point I don't know what the line is, and that's where that stuff exists. That I don't know what this is.
And now, when you're making your own music, is that truth? Like, again, Zappa, he'll talk about porn, he'll talk about sex, he'll talk about food, he'll talk about politics, he'll talk about consumerism.
Yeah.
Is that informed in this record, in Drunk? The
well,
truth?
I mean, again, it's like everybody's truth can be different sometimes, And a lot of the time, one thing I've learned by way of specifically, I want to say, two people that were very influential in my life, which would be Erykah Badu and Flying Lotus, is how honest the music has to be to you.
Right.
Like, it doesn't matter if I'm a Christian. It doesn't matter if I'm, if I'm fat. It doesn't matter if I think I got small balls. It doesn't matter if I don't know how to roller skate. It doesn't matter if I've learned kendo. It's like that is my reality. And along with that, it comes the things that get amplified by way of just nature of being that. It's like the moment where, again, it's always going to go back to the black one because that's like the easy target. It's like, it's always been a thing, but then it's been nothing for me. I didn't grow up in the civil rights movement era, but apparently it still is happening. This is still the civil rights era. So it's like, era, where's the line here? It's like, what am I fighting for? Am I still like trying to prove I'm a full human, or is it like, am I immigrant? Am I immigrant? It's like, because I could have sworn, it's like, it's all laced in those areas like that. But at the same time, it's like, not everybody's black. So it's like that's not something somebody always is going to be able to relate to just by way of they're not. But it is one of those things to where it's still everybody's experience.
And if we can't relate to it, if someone can't relate to it, they'll relate to the idea that it's honest.
Exactly.
And that's the importance of honesty in music.
Yeah. And I think it's like the one thing another person could have for another person is empathy and just trying to understand, because it's just what it is. Be it rich or poor, or be it black, white, be it, mid. I don't even know what the proper term for like short person. Be it
a little person.
Yeah, being small, being tall, whatever. It's like the reality is like, no matter what card you've been dealt, you're still here, and I think it's just for us to try to figure that out between each other. And people don't get it right. Nobody's gotten it right so far. It's like, you're still fighting over what the pyramids mean, and like, it's like, what's this stone? And it's like, I don't know. It's like, well, I know what it is, so I'm gonna keep it from you because it's just weird. Mm-hmm. We're just weird.
Yeah, and I think that it's absurd.
Most of it is literally like terrible.
And sometimes absurd music can express that absurdity.
Exactly. It's like, it's just I think the art is a reflection of life.
And I think it always has been. I think if you look at we're getting super nerdy. I'm sorry about this, but like if you look at early 20th century composers, what were they reflecting? They were reflecting industrialization. Yeah. They were reflecting a war. They were reflecting nuclear politics. So therefore, of course, music's going to get more clashy. Of course, it's going to get out of the 12-tone scale. Like, of course, it's going to get weird.
Exactly.
Because things are weird.
Exactly, dude.
Your music reflects not just what's happening, but how it feels.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I've tried to capture that a lot of the time,
I want to talk about Kenny Loggins.
Hey, I want to talk about Kenny Loggins, too.
I want to talk about Kenny Loggins.
Talk about Kenny Loggins.
But I feel like I'm doing Kenny Loggins a disservice by, like, being pretend jokey about it, because Kenny Loggins and Michael McDonald, they are kind of poster boys of the late 70s, early 80s, late rock era. Mm-hmm. Hall & Oates, Fleetwood Mac, Toto, my favorite, Christopher Cross.
Mm-hmm. Somebody made a joke, like if I would have gotten him on the album, that it would have been like an apocalypse in the real life.
But whatever. It's beautiful.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was totally, in the positive light,
Kenny Loggins and Michael McDonald are on this record. That's a very, very different vibe than the rest of the records, a different vibe than maybe what people would expect from a contemporary record. What do they bring to it?
Well, one thing I had to, again, like with being honest about it, it's like there's a part of me that is, again, a songwriter. And it's like a lot of the time people know me because of playing bass and because of the things I've been involved with when it comes to the production side like that. But there's a reality that exists for me that stems from songwriting. And I had to learn how to do that.
I don't know what you mean.
Well, it's one of those things where, okay, a simple way to put it is like when I was younger, I was very quiet. I wasn't one to like always talk, and if I ever did talk, it was one of those things that was like, it came out like Snoopy or Woodstock. It would be like, wah, 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 wah. My friends would literally mock me because of that, because it would be like, it was whatever was going on in my head was coming out. If I was, it just wasn't. There was no. It was a seamlessness almost.
Okay.
So at the same time, it kind of put me in a place where I would never look at myself as a songwriter like that. But with my history with music and stuff like that, I would have to try to understand things and where they came from and try to learn, like very fast. And the best way to describe it is I remember the moment I came across Kenny Loggins and Michael McDonald and realized what they meant to me as a child. But I came across it very early, and not in the sense where it was like, oh, cool, my parents are listening to this cool music. No, I remember hearing, Warren G, Regulators, and it being like, man, that song was funky as hell.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, it would be on the radio, but then you'd be like, and then I would know I already knew what sampling and, stuff was, so I didn't know where that came from, but I was just kind of like, I'm getting tired of hearing Warren G rap over it, And then every now and again, you skip past the station and you hear What a Fool Believes or something, and you're like, well, that's a lot of changes going on. And you're like, that sounds better than what I just heard on the rap station. And you're like, and then you hear it everywhere you go, and then you start trying to sing like them. You start going, you start, you kind of feel it, you can feel it inside it becomes internal. And then from that moment, then I'm like, okay, then I have this full on like Steely Dan epiphany. Like I feel like if you haven't had that like explosion in your mind with that, then you haven't experienced Steely Dan. Like you haven't gone the Donald Fagen way. You don't understand it because it's literally like it's like a ton of bricks when you realize it. You know? And I remember like sitting there with Asia just on repeat, just like a crackhead, and then just like analyzing every last part. I'm like, okay, well, Chuck Rainey's like slapping bass in this one part, and the Steve Gadd solo. That's a Steve Gadd solo, and it's like, who's this guy? It sounds like that's
I know.
And then you put you like add, it's like 2 + 2 is 6. You're just like, oh, this guy is doing everything. This is the guy.
Yeah.
You see it.
Yeah.
And that's the Michael McDonald moment for me.
What are we missing? Like, I think that I love Christopher Cross. I love that. I love that Arthur's theme song, and I love it because it's a beautiful sentiment too. When you get lost between the moon and New York City, it might seem crazy, but it's true. Like, it's a beautiful sentiment. But I don't talk about it because people laugh at it. What are people missing?
What are people missing? Everybody, the truth is, like I said, it's one of those things where not everybody is like, a lot of the time, it's like only way I could describe it in a very interesting way is like there's one time Drake said, like, jealousy is just love and hate at the same time. A lot of the time when people laugh, it's because they don't know where to place it. So it's like a lot of the time, it's like you can't identify it, but you don't know what it is anyway, so all you know what to do is either make fun of it or like squash it. So it has to be compartmentalized a lot of the time. But as you grow, I think, especially with understanding, you start to realize places things actually hold. Like a 15-year-old's not going to understand what it's like to be married 7 times. It's just not going to happen. And it's like, a 40-year-old is not a 40-year-old guy is not going to understand like this terror between why is it so hard to make a solid decision with a younger dude. It's like it's just the way it goes. But truth be told, the music is worth so much more than those moments. So a lot of the time, I think with people's like jest again, it's one of those things where they just don't know what to do with it sometimes. But at the same time, the truth is told in jest. So it's like if you were to ask that person why they were laughing or what they were laughing at, it would probably be the most intense explanation they could ever have to explain something with. It's like, this sounds like somebody that like, this is like calling it yacht rock even denotes to so much more than what, it's like, that's not a bad thing. Cause I always say like, if you have the money to be on a yacht, that's not funny. That's like real money. So it's like, like who's actually it's like, where's the.
And also if you hear one of these songs in a grocery store or something like that, or if you're in the convenience store, you're in the mall, it's not easy to process. These are sad songs.
No, you just start, and you start singing them in the store, like, and it's like they're pouring their heart out, but it's like, do you look crazy because you're like connecting to that? It's like, no, it's just the beauty of what it is. It's amazing songwriting, and that's what Kenny and Michael have been. They've been these amazing songwriters, and again, it's like the commercialization of the stuff is like what it is. But if you have a guy there that can sit and pour his heart out on the track and it literally translate as like beauty, it's amazing.
And it's the truth. That's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, I wanted to talk about another 80s icon of pop music that you try to get on the record. This is a Canadian show.
You're gonna say it.
I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
You were trying to track down Gino Vanelli.
Yeah, man.
How did you do?
Well, I did about as good as trying to track Gino Vanelli down in Canada. It just didn't happen.
Well, what do you love about Gino Vanelli?
Oh my gosh, man! I love everything about Gino. Like the guy is like, I mean, it was. Again, there's these moments in life, like I was saying musically, that were just turning points. And I remember Gino Vanelli started me going down that path, you know. Again, sometimes things come to you in the ways they do, you know, and it's like everybody loves to sample and take from stuff, you know, but nobody ever wants to give the person credit, you know, because they're not keen enough to write a major sharp 11 over anything, you know. So they'll just take it from here, you know, and because it has this feeling in that one sharp 11 that they're the major sharp 11, it's like, oh, it's got this little flange in the moment, but you would never be able to describe it. But if you step back and look at that bigger picture and you go, oh, man, that came from this set of progressions on this album from this year with, whoa, you know, and you start to see this grand-esque picture. And I saw that with Gino Vanelli, you know, I remember the Gino Vanelli moment was the one intense moment for me. It was like,
When was it?
I think I was living with my parents, and you know, growing up around like, you know, Saw Rock Creative Partners and all them, like, you know, even Mad Lib and Cats, you know, it's like there's a culture of digging for records, you know. I kind of grew up in that culture.
And your dad was a musician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had records, tons of records in the house, yada yada. And I remember I went to Amoeba. I forget if it was when Amoeba first opened.
This is Amoeba in Los Angeles?
Yes, Amoeba in Hollywood. And it was maybe in one of the earlier years when it, you know, like to be even able to say that, like I feel old, but it was like I remember I was there for that, you know.
Yeah, again,
me and Kamasi used to just go, like his car would be the bottom. It was like you open the door and it just was like CDs fall out the car, you know.
I like this idea. If you don't know, by the way, Amoeba Records is maybe the best record store in Los Angeles.
In the history of record stores.
So you and Kamasi Washington used to go in there.
Oh, we would just go in, and it's like you would get out of school. I wouldn't be in school. We would just stay there for like the whole day. And you'd be finding all this stuff for like, you know, cheap. You'd be finding all these albums that, you know, be used, people been cracked, and you're like, oh, like, you know. And I remember I used to have a studio with a cousin of mine, and we would buy records and try to listen to them, find things to sample and take from. And it was two specific moments. I remember my brother sampling, my older brother, excuse me, sorry. I remember my older brother sampling the Gino Vanelli Brother to Brother record, and I remember hearing it and it sounding like it sounded like the apocalypse. It sounded like it's like what comes next is like just death. You know, it's like, and I remember it was within the first Appaloosa on Brother to Brother, and the fact that the album was even called Brother to Brother, like it spoke miles to me, because having brothers that do music, and this guy talking about his brothers, and then this music being this intense, it's like I immediately fell in the stream, and I was just like, that's for me. And from that moment of hearing Appaloosa, I went crazy. I went Gino Vanelli crazy. Like I went and got everything. And I sat in my car. The moment that really hit me.
Okay.
I'll tell you the moment that really hit me.
Yeah.
I was looking for this feeling and the sound of like, what is this? And I'm looking through all the records, and, you know, there's Gino from the 80s. There's the Living Inside Myself Gino. You know, there's what is it, Black Cars, and there's like all those, and then when you go further back, there's like the Bee Gees singing backgrounds. You're like, what? And I'm looking for this thing, and I come across Gist of the Gemini, you know. And I remember it was like, I think within the first two songs, Fly Into This Night. And I had a Ford Explorer at the time, you know, and I grew up in a mixed neighborhood where it was a bit rough and it was upscale, but still very hood. Mm-hmm. And I remember I didn't care if somebody ran up on me and stole my car and everything. The moment I was sitting there, I couldn't get out of my car until I heard the whole entire album. And it was like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's like people, crackheads, there's all kind of random dogs. And like, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I couldn't disconnect from that moment. And I remember, like, when I got out the car, it just changed my whole entire ears. It changed my ears, you know, just hearing them sing, "Fly, ah," and I was just like, whoa, you know, he's up there, you know, and I was just like, I understood it, you know. I was like, this is the way I want to go, you know.
I want to point out that this is a big shot Canadian radio show. Gino, if you're listening, get in touch.
Oh, he would hate me, man.
No, I think you guys would do well together.
He would think I'm terrible. He'd be like, you're horrible.
He'd get it. He'd get it.
Yeah.
You know, you guys both take jazz and fusion and make pop records. He'd get it.
Hey, well, you know, I definitely tried to reach out.
Listen, before I let you go, this has been a lot of fun talking to you, man.
Hey, thank you.
I've really enjoyed this. I think I'm less interested these days in how artists grow from when they first start playing to when they make the record that I'm talking to them about.
Mm-hmm.
What I am interested in is how artists grow from the time they start making a record to when they end it.
Yeah.
How did you grow during the making of this record, Drunk?
I almost went crazy. That's the best way to put it.
What do you mean?
You know, it's just like, you know, to even call the album Drunk, it's just like, it denotes to so much again, you know, where it's like, you know, I come from a really hard background of hardcore punk rock, you know, and like metal, thrash metal, you know. You know, and it's like you wouldn't be able to tell right off the bat, you know, because it's like, oh, sometimes I got some cool jewelry on or something, you know. It's like, but no, it's like I had that moment of realization this moment on the bus too, where it was like, you know, the bus driver was like, what the hell? I was like listening to like so it was either Testament or like, you know, but I didn't cut it off. It wasn't like a notion, like I was joking. I was just like, you know.
And you played bass for Suicidal Tendencies.
Yeah, for a very long time. And I mean, that's part of the story in the sense of like the chaos of like, I would say by the time somebody has seen me making the album Drunk, so to speak, it's just like, I don't know. I know emotionally, like from the Grammys till this moment, like the album didn't. Imagine this music existed inside of everything that was going on, regardless. So it was like between recording Kamasi's album, between recording Kendrick's album, between recording Flying Lotus's album. This is like another reality, you know. But it was like it would. I don't want to say it was like runoff, but it felt like it was like the sub level of what was going on up here. And by the time it got to the end of it, I felt like I was going crazy. You know, I did. I'm not even gonna lie. It was like I'm like outputting so much to the point of where I'm just kind of like out here. I've been struck by lightning like several times, and it's like, you know, your hair, you're like all jittery and stuff, and it's like that's what it felt like.
And are you proud of it?
Yeah. I wouldn't have it any other way. You know, I feel like that was the reality of the music coming through, as compared to just my reality. I think, you know, it's just I try to put it out there. You know.
Stephen, it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
Thundercat is a multi-instrumentalist and a Grammy Award-winning singer. His latest album is called Drunk. It's available now for your responsible consumption.
Just listen to it in an Uber. You know?
just take an Uber and listen to
You
it.
don't have to drive and listen to it.